When you look at some of the really bizarre, far-reaching modern conspiracy theories, I mean, the really strange stuff like secret races and underground bases or mass mind control, hidden cabals, it all feels kind of ancient, right?
It does. There's this archetypal quality. But interestingly, many of these specific tropes, they don't actually trace back to, say, medieval myths. They often connect directly to one truly explosive and frankly weird event in the pulp fiction scene of the mid-1940s.
The Shaver mystery.
Exactly, the Shaver mystery. It's almost like a foundational text for this kind of lore. And this deep dive is really about the immediate source, a genuine piece of American pseudoscience literature.
And at the heart of it, these two figures.
Yeah, two really extraordinary figures. Richard Sharpe Shaver, who was a writer and artist, visionary perhaps, who had spent time institutionalized. And then his editor, Ray Palmer, who was just incredibly savvy, very flamboyant.
And together they managed to convince, what, 250,000 readers?
At its peak, yeah. That these malevolent entities living underground, these Deros, weren't just real, but were actually responsible for pretty much all the chaos and suffering people experienced on the surface.
So that's what we're going to unpack for you today. This shocking mix of personal delusion, maybe psychosis, and, well, publishing sensation. We want to trace how Shaver's initial ideas about these hidden races.
Cryptoterrestrials, basically.
Right, cryptoterrestrials.
Yeah.
How that didn't just sell a crazy amount of magazines, but actually became like a direct blueprint for so much of the UFO and deep conspiracy stuff we see everywhere now.
It's a direct line in many ways.
Okay, so let's start with Richard Sharpe Shaver himself. Born 1907, an American artist-writer who got this sudden, really intense fame right after World War II.
And it was for stories he absolutely insisted were not fiction. He claimed they were based on his own traumatic personal experiences.
And his way into this, the origin of it, was unique.
Totally unique. In 1943, he sends this letter to Amazing Stories magazine. And in it, he claims he's discovered an ancient language, a proto-human language he called Mantong.
Mantong. And it wasn't just like an old language. He said this is the root language, the source of all languages on Earth.
Exactly. But here's where it gets particularly relevant to modern conspiracies. It wasn't just etymology. This was the seed of the idea that, everything is a secret message waiting to be decoded.
Ah, right.
Shaver claimed if you applied this specific, almost occult formula to Mantong, the idea that each sound has a hidden meaning, like T means integration, D means detrimental, that sort of thing.
Okay.
You could decode hidden meanings in literally every single word, in every language.
Wow, that's the ultimate secret code then. A direct precursor to looking for hidden messages in, well, anything.
Absolutely. Think Q drops, think numerology, finding patterns everywhere. And the story of how he supposedly learned this is key to the whole mystery.
The welding gun incident.
That's the most common version, yeah. He's working as a welder in a factory, 1932. Claims a welding gun malfunctions, and suddenly, bam, he starts picking up telepathic transmissions. Horrifying stuff from deep underground.
Specifically what? Torture sessions?
Detailed recordings of torture sessions being carried out by these hidden underground entities.
That is a really visceral origin story for anything, let alone a conspiracy theory. But we also have to acknowledge the context, right? The sources are clear about Shaver's background.
Yes, and it's unavoidable. His life involved significant periods of institutionalization, mental health issues. He spent 5 years at the Ionia State Hospital for the Criminally Insane in Michigan.
And he was discharged in 1943.
The very same year he started writing all this down and sending it to Palmer.
Which, raises some pretty serious ethical questions about Ray Palmer, the editor.
It really does. You have to wonder, was he consciously taking someone's perhaps genuine psychosis, their delusions, and deliberately sensationalizing it to sell magazines? It certainly created this dark, foundational piece of cultural lore.
Yeah. Despite that, though, Shaver presented this comprehensive worldview in his manuscript, a warning to future man. He laid out this whole history.
Advanced prehistoric races, he called them Atlans, Titans, Nortons, built these incredible cavern cities underground. But they eventually had to leave Earth maybe 12,000 years ago.
Why?
Fleeing the sun, basically.
Yeah.
Damaging solar radiation.
Okay, so they leave, but they leave things behind.
Exactly. They leave behind remnants. And this is where we get his cryptoterrestrial races. He splits them into two main groups. First, you have the Teros, short for integrative robots. These were supposed to be a noble minority, but often physically weak, maybe malformed, still retaining some of the original integrity.
Okay, but wait. Robots? That word throws me off because we think mechanical, right, like Tin Men or something.
Yep.
But these were biological.
That's a crucial point, yeah. They were absolutely biological, not mechanical. Shaver used the term robot more metaphorically, I think, to describe their behavior. He meant they were robot-like because they acted automatically, savagely, without feeling. They had degenerated over millennia into these mentally impaired sadists who got their hands on the ancient, powerful technology left behind by the original races.
And these were the bad guys.
These were the real villains, the Deros, DEROs, short for detrimental robots.
Detrimental robots. And their actions, what Shaver described, it must have been incredibly shocking for the 1940s pulp audience.
Oh, absolutely terrifying. He claimed they were still down there, in those caverns, kidnapping thousands of people from the surface.
For what purpose?
For meat. And for horrific torture experiments. The writing was filled with really dark themes. Sadomasochism, rape apparently so extreme that Ray Palmer often had to, heavily edit or just cut that stuff out to make it publishable.
Which brings us squarely to Ray Palmer, because like you said, without him, maybe this is just a bunch of letters nobody reads.
Exactly. Palmer was the editor of Amazing Stories, and the man just had an uncanny knack, a Midas touch, really, for sensing what the public wanted, no matter how bizarre.
And the image of Palmer himself is just pure pulp. This diminutive figure, disabled from a childhood accident, hunchbacked, maybe 4 feet tall.
Called himself a man from Mars.
Right. A self-styled man from Mars, discovering this story about subterranean torture bots, written by someone recently discharged from a mental hospital. It's quite a scene.
It's like high-voltage energy meeting high-voltage delusion, as you said. And the story goes, Palmer's own managing editor, a guy named Howard Brown, read Shaver's first letter, thought it was just crackpot stuff, then literally threw it in the trash.
But Palmer fished it out.
Palmer, ever the showman, ever the gambler, retrieved it. Apparently, he published that first letter almost as a lark, just to stir up some controversy, get people talking.
And it worked, maybe too well.
It caused a sensation. A publishing supernova, as you put it. Palmer took Shaver's original kind of rambling 10,000-word document, edited it heavily, cleaned up the worst parts, and crucially, he expanded it, puffed it up into a 31,000-word novella.
I Remember Lemuria.
That's the one. Published in the March 1945 issue of Amazing Stories.
And the success was immediate.
Immediate and massive. The issue sold out completely. Sources showed the magazine's circulation just exploded. It jumped from around 135,000 copies a month to over 185,000, maybe even hitting 250,000 at its peak.
250,000 readers.
Yeah. And for about 3 solid years, from 45 to 48, the Shaver mystery just dominated the magazine. Something like 75% of the issues featured Shaver content in some way.
Wow. And what about the reader reaction? Did people buy it?
That's the most startling part. Tens of thousands of letters flooded the magazine's offices, people writing in claiming they had similar experiences, they'd heard the voices, they'd encountered beings from inside the earth, they'd suffered from this underground meddling.
So a huge number of people were essentially convinced, or at least deeply intrigued, by this core idea of underground terror.
Deeply. And a key part of that terror was the technology the Deros supposedly used, these leftover ray machines from the ancient races.
What did the rays do?
According to Shaver, they allowed the Deros to spy on people on the surface. And critically, they could project thoughts and voices directly into people's minds. Tormenting voices.
So that's the mechanism. That explains everything.
Pretty much. The Deros and their rays could be blamed for literally any misfortune. Got sick, Dero rays, had an accident, Dero tamper, a plane crashed. Definitely the Deros. It was a totalizing explanation for chaos.
What's so compelling psychologically is how closely that matches documented human experiences, even back then. The sources link this directly to a psychiatric concept, right?
Yes, the influencing machine. It's a concept described in psychiatric literature way back in 1919, often linked to conditions like schizophrenia. It's this specific delusion where a person believes some kind of remote device, a machine, is controlling their thoughts, their feelings, their bodily sensations.
So Shaver's Dero rays were almost a perfect externalization of that internal feeling of being controlled or tormented.
Precisely. It gave him, and importantly, his readers, a concrete source for that feeling, a framework. If something terrible and random happened, it wasn't random anymore, it was the Deros.
Which offers a strange kind of comfort, maybe, even if the explanation itself is terrifying.
It imposes order on chaos. It means nothing happens by accident, which can be immensely psychologically relieving.
But not everyone was thrilled with this direction for Amazing Stories. The traditional science fiction fans, They weren't happy.
No, they were furious. People who wanted, stories about rockets and planets based on some semblance of science, hard sci-fi, space opera. They saw this Shaver stuff as just paranoid fantasy, a betrayal of the genre.
So they pushed back.
Oh, yeah. Fans organized boycotts, massive letter writing campaigns. They called the Shaver mystery hook'em a hoax. They felt Palmer was dragging the genre down into what they called psychic powers and low-quality sensationalism.
And did that pressure work?
Apparently. By 1948, Amazing Stories suddenly stopped publishing Shaver material. The official line from the publishers, Ziff Davis, was that the mystery had just run its course.
But Palmer had a different story.
Palmer later claimed it was due to pressure from sinister outside forces, which of course just added another layer to the whole conspiracy narrative. Palmer ended up quitting Ziff Davis, but he definitely didn't quit the mystery itself.
No, and this is where we see that absolutely crucial link, the bridge from this 1940s underground fantasy to the modern UFO era.
It happens almost immediately. You have pilot Kenneth Arnold's famous sighting of flying discs in 1947, which just electrifies the country. Palmer sees this, leaves Ziff Davis, and bam, he launches Flying Saucers magazine.
And he connects the two phenomena.
Directly. He starts actively promoting the whole flying saucer phenomenon, often alongside the Shaver stuff in his other magazine, Fate. His argument was pretty logical within that worldview. Where would these secretive advanced flying objects hide?
Underground, in Shaver's caverns.
Exactly. It was the perfect secret base. And Shaver himself had even written that the Deros sometimes used spaceships or rockets, and that they dealt with equally evil extraterrestrial beings. So the connection between subterranean bases and high-tech flying objects was forged right there in Palmer's publications.
That lineage feels really solid. You can trace it. The sources point out echoes of Shaver's Deros, these hidden, sadistic, underground manipulators in some modern conspiracy theories.
Definitely. Especially narratives involving abusive acts allegedly happening in secret underground tunnels, with the perpetrators somehow influencing surface events. That's pure Shaver mystery territory.
And it goes beyond just specific theories, right? It seeks into pop culture.
Absolutely. Palmer's biographer traces a path from Shaver through various esoteric writers and thinkers who picked up these ideas, right up to things like the modern reptilian conspiracy theories. The core concept, a hidden, powerful, often sadistic, non-human race controlling things from below, was really seated in those 1940s pulp magazines.
Even things like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep. The evil underground race called the Dero in D&D. That's a direct, acknowledged nod to Shaver's Deros. The influence is surprisingly wide.
And what about Shaver himself? After the Amazing Stories frenzy died down?
He didn't really stop believing. He spent the last decades of his life less focused on writing fiction and more on trying to find actual physical evidence for his claims.
Wow.
He got really into rocks. He developed this idea of rock books, basically. Ordinary-looking stones that he claimed contained hidden pictures and texts, like micro-images embedded by those ancient prehistoric races.
So he was still looking for Mantong, in a way.
In a very literal way, yeah. He started polishing agate slices, photographing them, claiming he could see ancient messages and seams. He even ran a mail-order lending library for these polished rock slices.
Wow.
And interestingly, long after his death, his later photographic work with these rocks led to him being recognized posthumously as a significant outsider artist. Which feels kind of fitting, doesn't it? His art and his delusions became completely intertwined.
So let's try to wrap this up for you, the listener. We've traced this really strange loop. You have a man, Richard Shaver, likely suffering from severe mental illness, whose deep traumatic delusions...
You get picked up, filtered, heavily edited, and frankly, monetized by this brilliant, maybe cynical pulp editor, Ray Palmer.
And the result is this incredibly powerful, dark narrative. It gives us the blueprint for so many modern conspiracy tropes. The secret underground bases, the mind control rays, the idea of hidden entities abducting and torturing humans.
Yeah, all that stuff that feels so pervasive now. You can see the seeds right here in the mid-40s.
And what's maybe most compelling is the philosophical void it seemed to fill for people at the time.
Right. It offered something the sources call conspiracy as theodicy, basically a non-religious explanation for why bad things happen, why there's suffering and chaos, especially in that post-war world.
It imposes order.
It imposes order. If you believe in a conspiracy like the Deros manipulating everything, then nothing is random. Nothing happens by accident. Even terrible things have a cause, a purpose, even if it's a malevolent one. Blaming the Deros, or, their modern equivalents, provides a strange kind of meaning to suffering.
So here's a final thought for you. Shaver spent the end of his life obsessively searching for proof, photographing rocks, trying to decode Mantong hidden inside them. When you look at today's online conspiracy theories, which are often built on digging through vast amounts of data, finding obscure details, editing images or videos, looking for hidden codes.
Seeing patterns everywhere.
Exactly. Ask yourself this. Are we, in our modern way, still just searching for Mantong hidden in today's digital rocks?